Hello and welcome to News Review. Barclays Bank this week announced it will close its Main Street operations by October next year. Following a long review, they will move from 108 employees to just 14. Although it will cease to offer local banking and local counters, Barclays Wealth and Investment Management is expected to stay on in Gibraltar beyond 2014.
It was a tense morning at Barclays. Since April, the bank had been carrying out a full review of its business operations in Gibraltar, and a decision was due today. Eventual closure had not been ruled out, and with several managers having opted out in recent months, employees must have gone in today fearing the worst. By about 10 this morning, the word began to spread. It's been a permanent fixture in Gibraltar for 125 years. But by this time next year, Barclays will cease to offer local banking and local counters. After 50 years on Main Street, it'll no longer offer retail banking there. With immediate effect, no new businesses or accounts will be opened on the Rock. Barclays is keen to point out that Barclays Wealth and Investment Management will remain in Gibraltar beyond next year. A dedicated phone line has been set up to deal with all queries. The harsh reality is that by October 2014, Barclays will employ 85% fewer people in Gibraltar. 94 Barclays employees will lose their jobs in the next 12 months.
Meanwhile, the government believes there is an alternative solution to Barclays that will offer community banking and be able to absorb jobs in the future. The Chief Minister wrote to Barclays staff members being made redundant, telling them that the government is looking at several ways of assisting them. These include having government personnel available in the bank to help them find alternative employment, and working with the union and the bank to ensure their rights are respected and that Barclays remains flexible. At the same time, Fabian Picardo said in his letter that the government is working hard to seek new retail banking options which may result in job opportunities. The Chief Minister spoke to Christine Vasquez.
Well, a huge disappointment for the whole of our community, not just for the government, but in particular for those who have banked with Barclays for the time that Barclays has been in Gibraltar. You know, Barclays has been in Gibraltar now for 125 years. And the problems that Barclays has worldwide, which have led to the review that has determined that they are to withdraw from retail operations in Gibraltar, has absolutely nothing to do with the sort of banking that they were doing in Gibraltar and that they are withdrawing from. The retail banking involving accounts of members of our community and members of communities around the United Kingdom are what built Barclays, are what made Barclays the bank it is today, and not the problems that they've had, which come from their casino banking operations, as they're described in the press, involving not just Barclays but many other banks that have found themselves and the financial system as a whole in very difficult situations for the past 5 years. So the people who have not caused the problem are the people who are going to suffer the result of this decision, whether they are customers or employees.
What does it mean to Gibraltar as a jurisdiction that we end up with one, perhaps two retail banks now?
Well, as a jurisdiction, it means that we are going to keep Barclays for international business and for financial services work. So in terms of a financial services jurisdiction, Gibraltar will continue to have the Barclays branch and the brand. For Gibraltar as a community and as a business community in Gibraltar, well, this is obviously going to mean that there is less choice immediately in terms of the retail banking operations available. The government is very confident that we will see other players in the market, perhaps even plural players in the market in the future.
And given that banks can only risk about 30% of each development, do you envisage a problem with mortgages?
Well, I think that the mortgage market in Gibraltar is not going to be immediately affected by this. From my understanding of the position of Barclays, they're going to continue to stay in the mortgage market in Gibraltar for some time. Certainly the new government affordable housing projects are going to be projects that are likely to come within Barclays' ability to lend into Gibraltar despite the end of their retail banking operation here in Gibraltar. So I think in terms of pure mortgages, this is not going to be as much of a problem.
And what about the effect on the government's capital projects and the government's ability to borrow?
Well, I mean, this is never going to be an issue that is going to concern the government as a borrower. The government borrows as a government, and it doesn't need to borrow from somebody on the Gibraltar High Street. And as you know, one of the things we're doing is reducing the government exposure to borrowing of this sort. So this should not cause us any concern institutionally as a government. Of course, it also means when there isn't one retail bank available out of the three that there have been until today, that although they'll continue to do mortgages, they won't continue to do the sort of lending that perhaps they might have done as part of their retail operations. So there'll be one less lender in town until others become established.
Well, there was a question, and we've heard about this in Parliament, of an outstanding debt by OEM, I believe of around 9 million during the previous administration's time, and that was owing to Barclays. Could this have had any effect on Barclays' decision? Could we perhaps have upset Barclays?
I think this did not make a difference at all to the decision made and announced yesterday of the withdrawal from the retail banking market. There was an issue, and people will know that there was a loan that the government made to OEM. There are other loans that were made to OEM, some of them from Barclays. And the previous administration had agreed with Barclays to repay that loan out of the profit of the housing schemes that OEM had developed for affordable housing for the government. The previous administration at one stage thought there was profit and that they would use that money to repay, and then found there was no profit in those housing schemes, and therefore that their agreement to repay out of profit did not mean Barclays receiving any amount. This is an issue that the present administration continues to deal with the liquidator of OEM, and Barclays is the main creditor, but it's not an issue that would have affected Barclays staying in Gibraltar or not staying in Gibraltar. Put it this way. If this government had paid Barclays £9 million, would Barclays have stayed in Gibraltar's retail market and not made people redundant? The short answer is no.
What about the savings bank? Do you think that this could have had some sort of effect on Barclays' decision to leave?
Not at all. I think the discussions that we're having with people in the banking sector demonstrate that what the savings bank is doing and is intending to do is something which is very positively received by others in the banking sector. If the savings bank had an effect on this, wouldn't it also have had an effect on all the other banks? And in fact, some of the other banks are talking about doing more in Gibraltar, not less. This is, and I think it's been clearly expressed to be, a worldwide issue for Barclays. Gibraltar is one of the early statements about reductions in numbers of employees and withdrawal of retail advantages that Barclays offers. It's going to happen in other parts of the world. It has already happened in some parts of the United Kingdom. So this is not a Gibraltar-centric issue. This is about dealing with wider worldwide problems affecting Barclays.
Well, I can give it some sort of a positive slant to envisage an increase in business, perhaps, for the savings bank.
Well, I don't think there is anything positive at all from the fact that people are going to lose their jobs and that people are going to find that their established banking relationships are no longer going to be there. It will mean for some of the current competitors of Barclays Bank that they may have more business. The savings bank is not chasing that business. We want those who are in business in Gibraltar commercially to pick up as much of that business as possible.
Chief Minister, is that bank GBC Bank? Is that what you've heard?
Well, we know of a number of banks in Gibraltar. I don't want to go down the road of talking about any particular commercial operator in Gibraltar and advertising for one and not for another. So, I mean, let's just talk about banks. What the savings bank may do, or what the government may do, not necessarily through the savings bank, is to try and ensure that the community has available to it the banking services it needs, even if some of those are not the most profitable that some businesses might be interested in. But we need to ensure that they're available to the community.
And in terms of the redundancies, is there a possibility of perhaps the government, the savings bank, absorbing some of the jobs?
Well, you may know that I've today written to every staff member of Barclays who is affected by this, telling them that the government is there to assist, using the machinery of government to help them find jobs throughout our job market, and telling them that we believe that there is a solution on the horizon which will provide an alternative community banking for our whole community, and that they will likely be the best people qualified to take those jobs in the future.
Any indication of what that solution may be?
There will be when we're ready to announce it.
For its part, the opposition said it deeply regrets and is very seriously concerned at Barclays' decision to close its local banking services next year. The GSD says the impact this will have in terms of confidence and the availability of retail and lending services to the local community as a whole are matters for concern.
What I want to say is that the GSD opposition deeply regrets Barclays Bank's decision to reduce its presence in a dramatic way in Gibraltar. And the immediate concern that we have as an opposition is the fact that there will be in excess of 90 individuals who will be not be receiving the monthly pay packet very soon. And that is something which we urge the government to address as a matter of top priority and top concern. The other issue which we need to address, again as a matter of urgency, is the fact that there will now be one less bank in effect in Gibraltar providing retail banking services. That will in effect mean that there will be potentially two banks which will be providing facilities such as lending facilities, which, if we believe what the government said 48 hours ago, that they will be producing 1,000 more units in Gibraltar's local property market, the demand for that will obviously rise tremendously over the next few months.
And following Barclays' announcement, Unite the Union said this is a very sad day, not only for Barclays employees, but also for the Gibraltar community as a whole. Unite was invited into a consultation process with the bank and took the opportunity to influence some decisions on behalf of and for the benefit of its members. However, the union says it was clear from the start that Barclays' intention was to significantly reduce staffing levels. Kellyanne Turnbull spoke to Unite's acting branch officer, Christian Duo.
Well, our first reaction, obviously, our members down there at Barclays are obviously shocked and saddened by the announcement today. Nobody expected the enormity of the actual announcement itself and the impact it would have to staff at Barclays.
You were present at the meeting this morning, so what exactly did it entail?
Basically, this morning it entailed a briefing from management to staff, where obviously we didn't have any input in the briefing itself, but we requested to be present, obviously, to offer our support to members. And obviously, we have been allocated an office in Barclays Regal House, where we will be able to have meetings with staff members. And this afternoon at 5:30, we intend to have a general meeting where all our members will be invited and openly speak and obviously raise concerns. And obviously, with the main objective is to obviously agree on a way forward after this announcement today.
And were any assurances given at all during the meeting?
No, basically it was a question of reading out in the meeting, in the briefing this morning, basically was announcing the impact of the review. Obviously the fact that they are going to continue here and they expect a service to be provided for until October 2014. In terms of what Unite's input in all of this exercise, in terms of the consultation when it started around a month or two ago, even though that we have managed to push for in benefit of our members certain benefits, it was very clear from the start that Barclays' intention was to drastically scale down the staffing levels and obviously drastically scale the service to the community. Our first reaction obviously as a union is we are saddened by Barclays' announcement today and we are totally opposed to their intentions.
Over 100 Gibraltarians employed at Barclays at the moment. What kind of reaction have you had from the staff so far today?
Obviously, the first reaction that we see is that they are shocked, and obviously they don't believe what they're hearing. So, you know, it sort of needs to sink in. But obviously, first reaction is and the fact that we were present there, I can tell you that it was heartbreaking in a way to see faces and to see working class people finding themselves in the position that they find themselves today.
So Unite strongly opposed to the news this morning. What's your next course of action in response to this announcement?
Well, like I said, it's twofold. One of the things that we intend to do is obviously to speak openly to the members today and obviously discuss what way forward and what we can do in support of them. But also what we have done today is send a message to the government that we urgently seek